Hi, I'm Gareth. I'm the current president of Wales for the Federation Master Builders. I've got Lisa Marie Brown from Pinkspiration with me today. We're talking women in construction. So Lisa's been involved in construction for a number of years. She's been involved in all sorts of different projects, so it's worth a listen. She's very passionate about helping young people, especially females, into construction. She's done a lot of it. She wants to do more of it. Listen on, and let's see if we can get more women into construction. I'm here with Lisa Marie Brown from Pinkspiration. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. So you've got a very interesting career and background, which we're going to go through and talk about today. So we're going to be touching on women in construction. We're going to be touching on the supercars. We're going to be touching on all sorts of things today. So really interesting, diverse topic of conversation today. So yeah, if we can briefly introduce yourself and what it is you're about, Lisa, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I've worked in the construction industry for 15 years. My dad worked in the construction industry, so I was always on site with him when I was younger. I set up Pinkspiration to train and upskill young people, women and girls, and help them into industry. We successfully trained and upskilled more than 12,000 young people, women and girls, and helped them into construction, industry, business, and motorsport now. So yeah, I've always worked in the construction industry. I've worked on rebuilding and transforming around 100 empty spaces and empty shops. And I just love that whole design and build process and engaging local people in projects. I think one of the things at the moment we could do more of is more training and upskilling projects for young people, and especially getting more apprenticeships for youngsters to get back into industry, because I think there's quite a big gap there. So yeah, I set up Pinkspiration, and then I've always had a passion for supercars and cars. So I did that as a hobby, mainly on weekends. I was out with my friends. So I was construction and cars, and typically not your girly things. So yeah, just, doing all the things that I love, really. So yes, the cars was a hobby for racing on weekends. And I worked in the construction industry then in the weekdays, which I really love. And then I've rebuilt and sold, so bought and sold 5 properties in the UK and abroad. And I just think the whole process of the design and build is amazing.
I've got a bit of an icebreaker question for you, Lisa. Obviously, you've done so much across different industries. If you could describe your journey in one sentence, what would it be?
One sentence. It's been a roller coaster, exciting and action-packed journey.
And a fast one.
And a fast one, yeah.
Especially with supercars, yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you first get into construction? And what inspired you to sort of get into construction? What was the initial sort of entry into construction for you, Lisa?
So my dad worked in the construction industry, renovating houses. So there was times when I'd live in a caravan whilst he was renovating the house.
Right.
And I was always on site with him, when I was younger. And I think that's where I got my passion from, was having, that role model where I was always on site helping out, helping dad and, painting and getting stuck in, getting hands on. And I think that's obviously stayed with me for, throughout my journey. But I love working in the construction industry, and I think it's one of the best industries to work in, and there's the most opportunities there, especially for young people or women and girls. I made a lot of money in the construction industry. I bought and sold 5 houses and properties, flipping them, renovating them. It's quite intense. So when you want to make money and be a success, it's not easy. Yeah. Because a lot of the time, I was working in one day job, and then I was renovating houses in the evening, then I was racing cars on the weekend. But it was quite a good mix. I just did what I loved. And I think if you do what you're passionate about, the rest follows. So, I think I've made around 1.7 million in flipping properties and business. That doesn't mean to say I've got all that money sat in the bank account. So I'm working on my next million now. But it's a really exciting industry to work in, and I think it's one of the best for opportunities. And people in construction are so forward thinking.
Yeah, I think so, and I think the problem is everyone's been conditioned to go to university and get degrees and things, but there's a lot to be said for trades, and actually you can earn an awful lot of money being a tradie. And so I think that we need more people in it. And obviously what we're going to touch on today is obviously women in construction specifically, but the construction industry needs more
Yeah,
people in general, doesn't it? It's not just women. Yes, we need more women, but it needs all sorts
yeah,
of different people coming into the construction industry because we've got obviously a huge skill shortage. But tell me about some of these projects.
yeah,
Transforming Spaces, Design Factor. Tell me about them. What was that all about?
yeah. Yeah, so Transforming Spaces was all about regenerating empty spaces and empty shops because there are more than like 30,000 empty homes at the moment just sat there empty. And we've got a lot more empty shops since, lockdown. So Transforming Spaces is all about, rebuilding and regenerating those spaces and bringing them back into community use. So for people to use and to, maybe set up businesses or enterprise hubs. So my most recent project was renovating an empty unit in Cardiff on Penarth Road, which has been a bit of a journey, but it's been fantastic. It was just an empty unit. It was sat empty for 3 or 4 years, and I decided then to transform the space. And we upskill and train local people alongside the project. So we take a team of young people and community members, and they get involved and learn skills in painting, design, decorating, and getting hands-on on the projects. And that's really, really good for building confidence and helping young people to get ahead. And what we find at the moment, a lot of young people, and in particular a lot of women and girls, have lost confidence. They maybe want to get back into industry where they've been out of work for a while. And these projects just help young people to move back into employment and training, and we find that they're fantastic. So I've been working with a lot of ex-offenders and young people at risk of offending to train and upskill them, to mentor them and get them on the right path.
Well, that's good. It's some really interesting. So, is the place you're at now? Is that the Penarth Road site? Is it, or is that another site again? Is that where the supercar?
So basically we've set up we rebuilt and transformed the empty unit. It took us about 3 months in total.
Yeah.
And then we transformed it into, upstairs we've got Pinkspiration, so we have an enterprise hub for women and girls to hire space. And then downstairs we've got Pink Supercars, so the supercar events on weekends, so drive outs and events on weekends. So we've got a coffee shop, valeting and events then. So that was a bit of a spin out. So it's it's been really successful, and we've got turned it into an enterprise hub. We have had a few challenges with the venue as well. Like, for example, as we all know, it's not easy working in construction at the moment. And setting up some of these ventures is really positive, but we've been like campaigning to have rate free on the building. And the energy and utility costs are, way too high. So we've been campaigning around, the big energy companies reducing their costs by 50%. So it's challenges like this the industry faces, as you know as well, like materials costs are much higher. So we try and recycle and reuse all materials, on site where we can. And I think there's a huge challenge facing the construction industry and businesses across the board at the moment, with all the introductions from government coming in. It doesn't seem like an entrepreneurial time to be running our businesses and for them to thrive. So I think we'd like to see more changes with the government around growth in particular, and backing our small businesses. 97% of people across the UK run small businesses. They're one-on-one, they might take on one-on-one small teams of 5 to 10. And we really need to back our small businesses and create growth. I think it's a challenge for the government moving forward, but we need to see more radical growth policies coming into the market.
We do, and not rises in tax national insurance, but we won't go there. So obviously we know construction is very often male orientated and dominated. So what's the biggest challenges you faced as a woman in construction, and how did you overcome them getting into the sector?
I think for me, working in the construction industry, many people, partners I work with, have been fantastic. They've been open to me working in industry, and I think it's a fantastic place to work, in my opinion. Working in the construction industry is a breeze compared to working in the supercar world, because it is much more aggressive and dominating in the supercar world, So, but there's lots of opportunities for women and girls to get careers in industry, and I think it's an exciting time. Some of the challenges that I come up against, I think a lot of it would be things like trolls and people's perceptions, and some of the, the I get a bit of hate crime and trolling online. So I think that can be a little bit challenging to deal with, but I tend to just switch my comments off and just crack on with my job. And I think changing perceptions around the industry as well, that it's, open for everyone. But I think the construction industry is by far the most forward thinking.
I think as well with the construction industry, I think when a lot of people talk about the construction industry, they just see bricklayers, roofers. I think they just stereotype the construction industry around trades, but actually there's a whole
Yeah.
host of other job roles within the construction sector, isn't there? Whether it's estimating, quantity surveying, project team, project management, in accounts, and there's so many different aspects of roles within the construction sector. And I think that's where I think sometimes people get they think it's just about getting your hands dirty, but it's not. There's lots of other roles within the construction which are really important as well. Health and safety being one, obviously. So, there's a lot of different roles available to women in construction nowadays, isn't there, than there was probably years and years ago.
So when I first joined the construction industry, I think I went to I think it was a Federation of Master Builders dinner,
Okay.
and I was the only female. I was
Right.
like, oh my God, this is crazy. It was just me and one other person, and obviously that is changing now, which is fantastic. You go to events and it's like 30-40% of women and girls in the room, and they're doing some fantastic projects, quite groundbreaking initiatives. And I think it's fantastic for the industry. But I have to say, like, the construction industry, for me, is really where I prospered, and the industry encouraged me to prosper. And I mean, yourself, you worked in construction for a long time. But I always had a day job. I always had a side job. I always had like racing cars in between. So I think the industry is a fantastic place to encourage people to prosper. And I think, it's a brilliant place to work, and it really just encouraged me to accelerate and to get ahead. And I think a lot of the people working in industry, they want you to do well.
Yeah. I think as well. I think one of the biggest things that I think for anyone works in construction, and I challenge anyone who's never said this, but you drive down the road and you'll see something you're involved with. And you said, "Oh, I did that. I was involved in that." And
Yeah.
it's good to actually leave that lasting positive legacy on your local area. That's what I liked about being in construction. The stuff you're involved with is still there. It's you played a key part in making it happen, and it's there
Yeah.
for the people to enjoy and use, isn't it? I think it's that feel good factor which you don't get in many other jobs. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic community, and people really embrace me. So they embrace me in industry. So they're like, oh yeah, Lisa, it's just Lisa. She's the pink lady. She's got the pink supercars. Yeah, she's always landing on the construction sites in one of her fancy cars. But if you work hard, then you should be able to play hard as well, as I say.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think it's a brilliant place, and I think people as well, they want to see you doing well. So, for example, I was working in construction, and then I was racing on weekends, and then had a great opportunity to work with some of the biggest, most successful brands in the world, like Ferrari, McLaren, Porsche, and race on track with Alpine and Lotus. So I was able to blend the two things quite well.
That's good. It's nice to be able to to join passions together, isn't it? Construction and racing cars and things like that. So yeah, it's that brings us nicely into so you've branched out into the supercars, and obviously because you've got quite a varied sort of entrepreneurial journey as well, haven't you? You've had influential figures in your business career with Richard Branson, Boris Johnson, and things. So how have you found those sorts of people have helped shape your career?
So it was brilliant to work with Richard Branson. He mentored me for a while. I was on their Virgin Media entrepreneur program, so I got to work with him and his team quite closely. Had some really fantastic experience. I mean, he's an amazing person. He's also very down to earth as well. Just wants to give back to local people. So I think having the experience of working with the best entrepreneurs in the world has helped my outlook. So I know, for example, if I've got an idea or project, that I can make it happen. very quickly. And I think that's a message for other entrepreneurs. You don't have to have money to make your ideas and projects and a reality. So it's been a really good. He was a really good role model. And I had a chat with Elon Musk once. It was him and Elon
Really?
Musk on the phone. I wish I could
Wow.
get him back on the phone right now. It'd be quite cool. Hey Elon, it's just Lisa. But yeah, both of them gave some good tips. And then they were fantastic. And yeah, Boris Johnson, I met him in London. I was invited up to an event about upskilling and training young people. What else could we do to help young people get ahead, and the importance of upskilling and training young people. And I think, at the moment, I do think there needs to be more funding for young people and women and girls to get into industry. So we need to look at that as a key priority with the government. And then that in turn then would help some local businesses within the construction industry to recruit. Because I think we used to have these schemes where, multi-millions of pounds were put in to upskill and train young people. It was years ago, the YTS scheme. We had apprenticeship schemes, jobs growth schemes. And I think we just need some more of the funding to come back into this market so that we can train and upskill the next generation.
Yeah, I think so. Wales obviously was affected quite badly with the European funding being cut, really, wasn't it? I don't think Wales has ever recovered from that cut in funding
Yeah.
when we left the EU, really, because I think Wales got massive amounts of EU funding, didn't it, towards training and projects. It did in North Wales anyway. So yeah, it'd be nice to see
Yeah,
that whole
we
plug.
had we had our funding cut. We just won a £50,000 contract with Pinkspiration, and then we had all of our funding cut prior to lockdown, and we've never been able to win another contract since. So I think, obviously that needs a big radical rethink with the government. Why isn't the investment getting out to some of the small businesses? What's going on? It's a bit fragmented at the moment, the investment streams. So there's like lots of different private investors, and then you've got like Development Bank, and then you've got British Business Bank, and then you've got all the private investor companies underneath. And I think it's really confusing for the small business, like who do they approach? And then they approach one, we've got Business Wales, so they approach one and then they get referred to another, and then their inquiry gets missed. And I think we need to just simplify that process in Wales. But in particular, I think one of the key things that I found was a bit distressing is Welsh Government gave £150 million back to UK Government because they couldn't spend it. And I think we do need to have an economy and enterprise team in Welsh Government, flagging like these issues, because we could have spent that 10 times over, either in industry or to train and upskill the next generation. But also, I think with there's so many empty spaces and empty shops in particular, we've all been affected. There's just so much we could have spent that money on.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't aware of that 150 million. It's a shocking number to give back, isn't it? Because like you say, he'll never get it back. It's
It is a shocking amount of money. I was involved in the consultation of that with number 10. So they were asking for feedback, and I submitted a paper basically to say that the investment, these types of investment, like where we've lost EU funding, it really needs to be pumped back into the local economy and into Cardiff, and not just Cardiff surrounding Wales, and we could be doing some radical things with this funding and investment.
yeah, but do you think we'll see that many realistically now? I don't know.
No, I think the way things are at the moment, it seems like it's more and more difficult and challenging to, we're in an environment where we're in a money freeze.
Yeah,
We've got a limited access to funding. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of money and investment put into training and upskilling young people. Only 1% of investment goes into female entrepreneurs at the moment. If that was levelled up to 50-50, we may see the economy growing. But I think there's a number of, huge factors really facing the UK and Wales where we need to get the economy growing. but no one's prepared to take the big risks and start pumping the money back into, projects and events. And until we see that happen, the government needs to put in money for infrastructure projects. For example, the big construction companies are struggling with cash flow. They're 90 to 100 days where suppliers are not paying. And I think lots of people we talk to are finding it very, very challenging. I think it's a key factor really to look at how we can get ourselves out of this mess and move us into a growth phase.
I think some of these big construction companies, they work on such small margins, don't they? Such small margins. It's a worryingly small margin for anything going wrong, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. What do you think at the moment? Like, how do you what are your people saying, the members? What are they saying? Are they saying similar things?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and obviously, is skills. And whenever we have board meetings, we usually find at least every board meeting there's a topic around skills, and people have got a skills issue. But obviously, from a state of the economy at the moment, I think it's like you say, we're in a bit of a stagnation. I think people are holding on. I know. According to the government, the economy grew slightly in November, but I think that was probably because Christmas was coming and people tend to spend a lot of money before Christmas. But I think it'll be very different once we see the state of the economy the first quarter of this year. And I think I won't be surprised if it shows us in recession, because you can just feel people are holding back. People aren't spending. If they are spending, they're not spending as much. They're a bit more reluctant to spend, and I think we'll probably see more people, staying put in their homes and staying and improving their existing homes rather than moving house, because interest rates still not great, which is typically good for builders, But then it comes back down to skills again, doesn't it? And making sure we've got the right people in the industry. But I know one thing a lot of the board members in FMB Wales have been interested in is actually getting they would like to have a qualification for a general tradesperson, a sort of multi-skilled tradesperson, rather than having a joiner, a bricklayer, a roofer, a builder. Is actually having a multi-skilled trade person who could do tiling, who could do a bit of this, who could do a bit of that, who's a bit of a jack of all trades, but who's good at doing those things. But is someone like that is quite handy to a small business who can't afford a full-time roofer because they don't do full-time roofing.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to have a multi-skilled qualification and have them on industry where they've got a number of different skills. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. With the recession, I definitely think we're heading into recession if we're not already there yet. And I just think in Wales, there's certain things we could do, like free bus travel, low-cost travel for everyone. Whilst we're going through this chaotic period of no growth, stagnation, I think we really need to look at initiatives that get everyone moving again. Obviously a big piece around building confidence. A lot of people, young people and women I speak to, a lot of them are actually just staying home at the moment. They're like, I'm just staying home, I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, what? You've been working in industry for 20 years. And I think, we're missing a big portion of our skilled and highly skilled women and girls that have just dropped out of the market. And they feel a bit disengaged, a bit isolated, and maybe they've tried to set up a business or two and it's failed. And there's a huge talent pool there I think we can tap into to get them back into industry. And one of my friends, she's a construction cleaner, so working on a lot of big contracts, had a huge nightmare with being locked down and running the business, and then had to shut the doors, which many will have to this year. But I think we need to make sure we don't lose that whole generation of talent, and we make sure we keep them in industry, and because it would be such a shame to do all that work and all that investment and into young people, into women and girls, and then just to lose it. So I think there's a huge piece to be done around whether it's women in construction network and upskilling and training them on site, reintegrating them back into industry, because there's huge opportunities there.
There is, and on that, Howard, just touching on that, because it's a very, very interesting point. What's your ideas on how those people you've identified, how could we get them back? How could we entice them back into the construction industry?
I think through like training and upskilling, like taster days, getting them back into construction, networking, maybe an employers network. I worked on an employers forum years ago in Newport, and that worked very successfully. So we had about 100 employers, and then we would link in young people and women and girls to that forum. And then I would train and upskill them, say over 3 to 4 weeks. They'd go on to a training program. So it was, CV writing, taster workshops in industry, meeting the construction partners, and then we would place a lot of them into industry. So I think it's having that stepping stone back into industry, or the stepping stones back into the workplace. A big piece of it, I think, is around building confidence. So like a women's employer network or a forum where we can get more employers on board, and then just look at what skills they're missing and try and upskill them, and then move them back into industry. So I think that's an area I'd be keen to take forward, whether it's a women's construction network or a network to boost some of this lost talent and get them back into industry.
I think I'd like to think the FMB, certainly in Wales, I know we've got some funding. We're looking to do some bits, and it might be something we might be able to help. And I can speak to the Wales board team about helping to arrange something with some funding partners we've got. So that'd be more of a conversation outside the podcast, but we can possibly help make that happen. Because I think it's a good thing for the FMB in general to be seen and helping more women get into construction. That's obviously one of the reasons we're chatting today. So yes, we can chat. We'll definitely chat about that off air. So what do you find from a community aspect?
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's from a community impact, obviously. How do you have you got any of your businesses sort of specifically community related? Do you have any like community interest companies? Do you have any what sort of business models do you have in your sort of enterprises?
Yeah, so I've got Pinkspiration CIC, which is obviously training and upskilling young people, women and girls, and then I set up the spin out P1NK for the supercar events on weekends. But to be honest with you, it just kind of spun out. I never really wanted two businesses, and then I had two, and I was like, oh my god, I've now got two companies. What am I going to do? And then and then from there, there's elements that have been popular, like the valeting has been spun out as well from it. But they're all kind of generating a bit of their own income. But I'm looking at, the best way forward, maybe, just having the one company might be a bit easier. But just trying to simplify everything, because I think for me, it sort of escalated and spiraled where I was getting 7,000 visitors. And I think just sometimes reflecting on the model that, you're operating and simplifying certain elements is a good thing. And sometimes it's not necessarily, I've been successful in business, but sometimes I feel like a failure. I feel like I haven't done enough. And then I look back and I think, no, over my career, I've done a lot of positive projects, got a lot of people into industry, and that's something that will be my legacy. So I feel proud about that and the difference that I've made. So I think sometimes having a step back and reflecting on certain models, maybe you can simplify the business, maybe it takes a different format, but I feel really proud of the positive impact that I've had. Like, I have a lot of young girls that come visit me on weekends, and they're like, oh, you're in construction, or you're in motorsport, or you get into supercars, and the young girls come in 14, 15, 20, 23, 24, and they're like, can you give my daughter advice on how she can get into motorsport, how she can get into construction? And I'm like, well, yeah, just go for it. Just get on site, get involved in some of our projects and events, and get that trade and industry experience. So I think this year alone, last year, I helped to mentor and coach around 300 young people, women and girls, and just point them in the right direction. And that's, young people, like young girls that have visited the venue and really inspired by my story, And I always make time for everybody, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If I can point them in the right direction to get, onto site or experience, then that's what I do. A lot of the time, it's just getting that experience and getting their foot in the door.
That's amazing. It's very inspiring. And but touching on one thing you said a minute ago is, I think most business owners have that. And that, for me, it was always around cars. Obviously, I've got a passion for cars as well, and so
Oh, yeah, we were like-minded there.
absolutely. But I think, especially when you run your own business, you don't really get pats on the back from anyone else. So you have to sort of give yourself a pat on the back.
No.
And my goals were all set around cars. So when business got better, I got a new car. I got a better car, and over the years there's been quite a few different cars, and the cars got better. But I think there's always that sense. I think as an entrepreneur, you haven't achieved anything. Once you achieve your goal, you never reach your goal because you're always moving the goal, because you always want to grow and you always want to do better. So you never sort of feel satisfied because you're always chasing the next goal, the next dream. So it's something I definitely struggle with. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't always feel like a success. So every now and again, I'm like, I'm a failure. And I'm like, come on. I'm like, you've just done everything that you ever dreamt of doing. So, I worked in construction, renovated properties and designed and customized like the McLaren 600 LT, which I raced it around in. And, raced on track, pushing that car up to 200 mile an hour. And this, the pink Ferrari was my most famous car. Obviously, I was involved in a car crash, or someone hit me in August 2023, and that was quite a big hit to take. And it did, it turned my world upside down, like from what I knew. And I did struggle with it for a long time. For 6 months I was injured. I struggled a bit with my mental health. I had a bit of a breakdown on the Christmas after it happened, because I had my injuries and I thought I'm never going to be able to work again like I was before. So all these things, were, I suppose everyone goes through a similar experience when it's like bereavement or a life-changing thing that happens to you. But then after a while, I just thought, I sat myself down and thought, stay calm, because if you're true and you do what you love, like no one can criticize you for that. So, mine's always been in industry, upskilling, training young people. And as much as the pink Ferrari and the supercars are a part of what I do, they don't define me fully. So, you have to sit back and you have to celebrate your achievements and think, well, every now and again, you have to have a bad year. You can't just be like, success, success, success. Everything's going amazing. Every now and again, it's the setbacks, and they'll be the things that actually define you, and how you make a comeback from those.
I think as
But
well.
yeah, so for me, I think the main thing was trying. Yeah, go on.
I think it's you. I say I have a word with myself. That's what I do. It's like you go through a bad patch. I'm going to have a word with myself, and you give yourself a bit of a talking down, and you need that bit of a reality check, because it is tough as a business owner. You're getting it from all different angles and pressures, and especially when you got multiple different businesses and things like that, and different ways of earning money and different, it's the stress sort of hits you from different angles, and and you can get quite drawn into it, and it's a tough place. So I do quite regularly have a word with myself, and give my head a wobble, and then you just move forward again, and it works weirdly.
Yeah, I sometimes do that as well myself. So I sometimes think, right, okay, you're here now, restart, reset, refocus, and just keep pushing. So no matter what that looks like, just don't give up, basically. Just carry on moving forward. So I do have a word with myself.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? As a business owner, you don't, if you have an enterprising boss or leader within a company, line manager, then you'd sort of get that from them. But when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a business owner, you don't get it from anywhere else. You have to give it yourself, because there's no one else to give it you. So
I know. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I think as well, when you're successful, you get lots of like spin outs and people coming up with new ideas. And then you're like, whoa, hang on a minute, flying around on this roller coaster.
Indeed.
Let's just bring it back to what you love doing. So you have to always bring it back to what you started, the reason why you started.
This is true. This is true. So we're going to drop back onto a couple of questions on construction again. So we've made a bit of progress in the construction industry, but we obviously still have, women underrepresented massively. But why do you actually think this is? Why do you think women are underrepresented in the construction, even in, 2025?
I think a lot of women and girls have been affected by lockdown and COVID, and lots of women and girls have chosen to sort of stay in or stay home and stay safe. And I think this mentality or this mindset has been instilled into them. So I think obviously building confidence is a big one to get them back into industry. Upskilling and training them via like quick routes into industry would be really good. Expanding more, women into construction networks and just trying to change the perception of the industry, online, on TV. A lot of the time, this is a big one for me, but a lot of the time we'll see a lot of male role models like on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on TV, working in these industries. So, for example, in the supercar world, like Jeremy Clarkson and the usual typical ones are on TV. So we don't see a lot of female role models. So we did some work with Channel 5 around, it was like Rich House, Poor House we got involved in to try and, change the perceptions. And there are like more female role models I think are required for industry as well. So that, you can't be what you can't see. And if people don't see other women and girls in industry, then it's unlikely that they'll move into those sectors.
And what specific, you've touched on a little bit there as well. What other ideas have you got? Can we make it more inclusive for women? Is there any other ideas that we could do? At the FMB, what more could the FMB do to help get more people into construction?
I think like getting involved in like launching a women in construction network and maybe having like a quarterly event where we can bring employers together and women and girls from the local community to say, hey guys, come in, meet the people in industry, hear what it's all about. And I think that would be a really good one. But also, maybe taster days and sessions. So, painting and decorating, some construction skills, like taster events. So we did like plastering, tiling, bit of plumbing for like 2 hours where they can actually get involved in trade skills as well. Or maybe a mix of the both. And then I think moving forward, I mean, I would like to get, 50 to 100 women into construction over the next year or so. Because there's lots of people that have just dropped out of industry that maybe haven't returned. And I think, getting into some of that untapped potential is a big one.
So I'm sure you've got lots of these, but have you got any specific examples of success stories for women in construction? Anyone who's broken down barriers or come through some sort of challenge in their life to get into construction?
So I've helped quite a few. And one of the young girls that I helped, Chloe, she's watched my story and she was running her own construction site, set up her own construction business. She was really inspired by my story and now she's working on a really huge contract with SSE. So I've got quite a few success stories where other young people, women and girls have followed my story and then got into construction. And they're currently thriving and doing amazing in industry. I think we just get some role models and like tell their story and have a bit of a campaign, online, on socials, maybe interviewing and chatting to some women and girls in industry and doing some video vlogs with them. And then, putting them up online across social media channels and then maybe having, like a recruitment campaign alongside it to say, hey, if you're interested in getting into industry, get involved and just really, trying to take it to the next level. Go out and meet some of like the colleges and find out what females they've got coming through the college and then actually looking at, maybe placing them into industry with an employer partner. So they've got like matches straight away. Because sometimes we've heard of some young people going into college and then some of the girls, like, they can't get work placements or industry placements. So I think that's something that we could work with the Federation of Master Builders on, and other partners, where we could say, get them that work experience, match them up.
Okay, that sounds good. And what advice do you have for any women considering construction as a career?
I would say, like, go for it. It's one of the best industries to work in. You also meet and work with amazing people, and also, it's one of the highest paid industries at the moment, I would say. So, there's lots of opportunities to get, high paid roles. So I would say, get experience, go for it, and just, introduce and find people that you can get advice from locally.
And are there any initiatives in your local area at the moment with regards to helping women into construction? Is there anything available at the moment out there?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I
Yeah.
lost you. You're dropping out.
Is there any initiatives that you're aware of in Cardiff, South Wales at the moment to help women into construction? Is there anything you're aware of?
So not that I'm aware of. Years ago, there was a Women in Construction group, a networking and group that would upskill and train women and girls, but I think that's been cut, so that's no longer in existence. And then I know, obviously you've got CITB that will do the apprenticeships training and help young people into industry. But I think we need to do more to get more females into industry. There are a couple of projects that I'm aware of locally. I think there's one project in West Wales, but I just think we need to do a lot more. We need to do a lot more projects and a lot more events and networking and upskilling more young women and getting them into industry, because there's a few, but there's not as many as I would like to see. I would like to see more projects happening locally.
If you could make one change in the industry tomorrow, what would it be?
I think I would personally, if it was up to me, I would put more funding and investment to training and upskilling young people, women and girls. I would put, if it was my choice, I would put like £1 million or £2 million into training and upskilling young people, women and girls, and really have a big, effort, set up some teams and make that happen. But yeah, I would like to just encourage more diversity in the construction industry and say there's so much untapped potential out there. Maybe, to the construction companies, consider taking on a young person, and to consider, maybe taking an apprentice on. But I think it's a bit of a challenge is that some of the construction companies are so up against the wall with costs, and, they're a bit nervous about taking on new talent. But I would just say to try and find someone locally, maybe mentor a youngster, maybe, get out there and have a chat to a young female that wants to get into industry and see if you can help them.
Perfect. And a couple of closing questions. What's next for you personally and professionally?
So me personally, like to do some more racing on track. So that's on the weekends. That'll be my hobby, and reviewing and testing some more supercars. So that's what I'd like to do on the weekends as a personal hobby, and just getting out on track a bit more. And then professionally, I'd like to, set up this Women in Construction network or employers forum, and have a real, positive move and agenda with that moving forward, and maybe get some partners on board where, we can set up a more structured forum to help new talent into industry.
That's great, because the FMB, obviously, Wales board, can hopefully get involved with that, because they're obviously based in Cardiff, so they're obviously local to help hopefully with some of those events.
That would be fantastic. I'd love to get involved in the Wales FMB board. That would be brilliant.
Yeah.
And I've applied for a couple of other TV shows as well, so that would be great publicity as well.
That sounds amazing. And on that note, so where can followers and people who are watching this, where can they learn more about Pinkspiration, Lisa Marie? Where can we learn more about you?
So we're going live on Channel 5 at the end of March. We've just done some
Okay.
filming with Channel 5. They can check out the website. It's p1nk.co.uk or pinkspiration.co.uk. Or you can just give me a follow on Instagram, or direct message me on Twitter. So I'm pretty accessible to most people. But I would say if people want a career in construction, I would say just to go for it. Don't hesitate, get out there and get into industry, and really, there's so many opportunities out there. What are you waiting for? So that's my top tip, is just to go for it. And also I think from my own point of view is, let's get moving again. Let's pick up the pace a little bit. So don't be afraid to go out and meet new people and, get new opportunities in industry. And just, basically pick up the pace and get into industry.
Well, really appreciate your time, and thank you for bearing with us with the awful Wi-Fi today. But yeah, really appreciate it, Lisa, and we'll definitely chat offline with regards to some of the women. If we can look at an event with the Wales board team. But really appreciate having you on. It's been great to learn more about you, more about Pinkspiration, and look forward to following your journey.
But yeah, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.